Drag racing fan, Monday Morning Racer, back in studio, live between the slicks. I think we have got a great guest tonight. Later on in the show, as you know, Elon Werner. We're going to have him on. Ladies and gentlemen, a legend in the PR world of drag racing. And looking forward to chatting with him. He's obviously got great stories, definitely got a behind-the-scenes look into the world of drag racing. And we're going to glean from him everything that we can tonight on the world of drag racing. I'm sure we're going to have some great John Force stories. He helps out with Tim Wilkerson, Alexis DeJoria, the Toyota teams, many other groups out there. Looking forward to having him on and you all putting your questions forward to him and enjoying getting a glimpse behind the scenes into the world of drag racing. Something with this show that I have wanted to do is showcase other individuals in the world of drag racing. Ladies and gentlemen, I know the drivers are spectacular. It is spectacular what the drivers are doing in any category, from the reaction times to just holding on to that wheel at over 320 miles per hour. But there are many other players in the circus, if you will, and you're never able to enjoy the circus unless you've got the people putting the tent up in the crew doing their job. And right here on Between the Slicks, want to be able, whether it is the ringleader or the clowns, kind of like me, showcase what is going on in the world of drag racing. I am excited to announce, I already know who our guest is next week. It's rare. It rarely happens that I know this soon, but I reached out to Quayne Stott, and he said he's more than willing to come on next week, and we're going to get a mid-season recap, looking forward to the end of the season for the Southeast Gasser Association and what's been going on with Quayne, that organization that he's built and is going so well, those drag racing reenactors. So next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday night, right here on the Monday Morning Racer platforms on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, we're going to have Quayne Stott on, the owner, leader, director of the Southeast Gasser Association. Tom, thank you for watching. Thank you for chiming in. Let me also say thank you, Sam Smith, listening while at the gym. Support you, my man. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. And Michael chimes in and says, hey, from Pittsburgh, love the show. Michael, thank you for watching. Appreciate you saying that. And folks, if you're watching, hit the like button, hit the share button. Let folks know that the drag racing conversation is continued right here on Monday Morning Racer with a show specifically about it. That's why we call it Between the Slicks. It's everything about drag racing. Occasionally something else comes up every now and then. Like I just put out on YouTube a short, if you will, from a past episode with Stevie Ray. Yes, the WWE Hall of Famer. He was on and shared one of the moments that's the best moments in his life was winning a NASCAR race and being a part of that at the Daytona 300 with Steve Grissom at the wheel on the WCW Busch Series car at the time. You can check that video out on the Monday Morning Racer YouTube channel. I also want to, before we dive into a little drag racing talk, before we have our guest on, I want to say thank you to Darren Williams Jr. Last week, many of you tuned in, and I was on my way to Norwalk, Ohio, to Summit Motorsports Park for the NHRA Summit Racing Equipment Nationals. And when you drive to these events, and I like to drive to the events that I can drive to, it puts you in a situation where doing a show on Thursday night puts you hours behind getting to that event on Friday. So I reached out to Darren. Darren, can you help out? I just want to say publicly, I want to say live on my show, Darren did an outstanding job. And I want you all to know that was not an easy interview to give up. I'll put it that way. When I had Sam Smith host, Shane Bellemere was on, the top guy in Top Alcohol Funny Car. It was hard not to do that interview, but I gave Sam a good guest. And I believe I gave Darren 2 good guests as well. Paul Weiss, Corey Lee of the New Englander Nitro Funny Car and NHRA competition. And that team has a special place in my heart. They play a pivotal role in me being right here, in me being out there in the world of drag racing media. So it was not easy to let him have it, but nonetheless, he did a great job. Go check him out at American Hot Rod Entertainment on YouTube, Facebook. Give him a follow on Facebook. Give him a subscribe on YouTube. Well, folks, there is a little bit of a controversy being stirred, if you will, with Twitter from Indycar. Yes, Indycar. Indycar apparently thinks that they're still one of the top motorsports in America. At one time, they were the top motorsport in America, but that has been overshadowed by NASCAR. That split they had many, many moons ago hurt them drastically. I want to bring up the tweet that Indycar put out in response to an NBC Sports tweet. Look at this image. NBC Sports asked, if you could only watch one sport for the rest of your life, what sport would that be? Now, IndyCar, it does air on NBC Sport and NBC, so it's wise of them to say IndyCar in response to a tweet put forth like this. But, mind you, they don't just say, oh, we're a bit biased, we're going to watch IndyCar. No, they give as if it were the Webster's definition of IndyCar. What do they say there? The world's fastest and most diverse racing series. Like, have you lost your mind? Whoever is the Twitter handler for IndyCar, have you lost your mind to say that IndyCar is the fastest and most diverse motorsport? Really? There was a lot of response from NHRA fans and even the NHRA themselves on Twitter, and they retweeted the same post from NBC Sports and put it this way: NHRA definition, the world's actual fastest and most diverse racing series. I understand this is on Twitter, but man, give NHRA drag racing the credit that is due. There is no other motorsport that has the diversity that the NHRA has, that drag racing has. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, Erica Enders is up for an ESPY to be driver of the year. If I remember correctly, there's not another female on that list. And you're not going to have a female on that list from any other motorsport anytime soon. Let's continue on the line of diversity beyond gender. Well, what about race and ethnicity? African Americans. You have African American champions. You have African American winners. You just had a Hispanic winner in Cruz Petragon. You've got whites. You've got Italians. You've got Dutchmen, Lex June. You've got people from down under, Australians racing in NHRA drag racing. And look, if you go into beyond drivers and begin looking at the crew members, they're coming from all over the world to participate at the top level of drag racing in the world. Women champions, women winners, all ethnicities represented. You even got the young Shoemake making a case for those of the LGBT community within drag racing. Whether you agree with what his statements are, look, there is not a diversity problem in drag racing. Tom, he mentions here, drag racing is the original and still the most diverse and extreme sport. We could argue on the most extreme sport, but most diverse, especially in motorsports, it is. It has the international flair. It has all the genders. It has all the races. It's got everything. And it's had it for nearly since the inception. Actually, I would argue that drag racing at this very time, with the way the political climate is of diverse, get diversified, get your diversity. The NHRA is kind of outside the circle of, or outside of the movement of any diversity because it doesn't need to do it. It's been so diverse for so long, it can't get caught up in a diversity movement because it's already been there. Indycar Twitter, check yourself. Let's move on. Bob Taska. You know what? I mentioned this with Sam Smith, my co-host on Competition Plus, and we didn't get to talk about it like I hoped we would get to talk about it. But Bob Taska is not getting the love I think he ought to be getting. Look, John Force Racing comes back on the scene. 2 wins for John Force. 2 wins for Robert Height. You've got Brittany is now looking like she's beginning to perform and turn their season around and begin to hit and fire on all 8 cylinders. John Force Racing is back. But Bob Taska is leading the points. Bob Taska has got 2 wins. Bob Taska is making sure that team gets past round 1. They are performing. And I find it interesting. Last year, what was the narrative? Don Schumacher Racing dominates. Yes, we've got 2 less cars in the funny car camp of Don Schumacher Racing, but they have not won a race yet. And we're talking about Matt Hagan and Ron Capps in the funny car ranks. At this point, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm surprised that Don Schumacher Racing, in the funny car camp at least, has not got a win. They have been shut out by, yes, John Force Racing, the Colettas, and that Taska team. I think Taska's got something to prove. They've been wanting to get Ford a championship, not just wins. And the Ford people, the people who've been with Ford way back, you go back in the earliest days of Pro Stock, you'll find Taska on the side of the car, hungry to get Ford a championship in NHRA funny car. And they look like they're well on the way to give themselves a shot to do that. Currently, right now, he is leading the points with 590 points. John Force is 53 points behind. 53 points behind. That's roughly 2.5 rounds. We'll put it that way. Not as large as a lead as Steve Torrance, but it definitely is an exceptional lead at this point in time. Now, yes, we've got to reset the points and all of that's going to happen. It happens. It happens with the countdown. It's going to happen. We'll see what they do in the countdown. But I just want to say, congratulations, Bob Taska. Your team is running well. You are driving well, and it is showing. It's critical in being a championship team that you get past first round. You go rounds. You don't necessarily have to win every race, but you've got to get past first round. You've got to regularly make semifinal appearances. And they're doing that. They are doing just that. Folks, remember, mentioned it earlier, Erica Enders up for an ESPY Award. Go vote. Go to ESPN.com, find it, ESPY Awards. Go vote for her for Best Driver of the Year. Drag racing doesn't get this kind of representation that often, so go vote for her. Let's pull her across the line and get our gal the win there in the ESPYs for Driver of the Year award. She is definitely deserving of that. And wow, she put a stop to Greg Anderson there at the Summit Racing Equipment National. So many things coming together there. Is a track that Greg finds special. It is a track that's got Summit Racing in its name. It's the national event that's got Summit Racing in its name. It's Greg Anderson, who we associate with Summit Racing for so many years, and though it is only on the car, on like the deck lid now, he's still the Summit guy. He'll tell you that. I've interviewed him on Competition Plus with my co-host Sam Smith, and he's admitted that. He's shared that. He thinks that. Erica Enders stops him from getting past Warren Johnson in the win column. The storyline's there. I tell you, I think there's going to be ramifications. I think it's going to ripple on down through the year to Pomona, to the last race of the year, that kind of moment. And I think it's going to be epic between them. Later on, we may talk about points with Elon concerning Pro Stock itself, but Pro Stock points, quite interesting. Who are the players right now? John Rogers, he chimes in, and I'm going to bring it up. Want you all to know, there's the link after the show, or click and have another tab. Go right there. Thank you, John, for putting it in, and vote for Best Driver of the Year, and it better be Erica Enders. Go do that. Go do that. Do that right now. But open up another tab. Open another tab. Keep watching. We do got Elon in the green room, and we'll have him on in just a few moments. Jim Halsey, PDRA. Ladies and gentlemen, I think at this point in the PDRA, it is a race for second in Pro Nitrous. It doesn't look like Jim Halsey is going to miss a beat at all, and it doesn't look like any of the players have much for him. I will say Jay Cox has won. Jay Cox has made it to a final there in Maryland. Tommy Franklin in testing and qualifying showed performance, but it looks like Jim Halsey once again has a strangled hold on that class in the PDRA. If you would, put in the comments, what do you think? Do you think Jim Halsey is going to win it again this year concerning the championship in the PDRA, or do you think someone, Jay Cox, Tommy Franklin, someone else can step up and challenge him going into the next half of the PDRA season? Continuing thinking about the PDRA, Chris Powers looks like he has got the opportunity where it is his championship to lose at this moment. Interviewing him briefly on Talk with the Carusos on Tuesday night, he said that they're not done, they're still hungry, and there's more work to do. The competition has got to watch out for Chris Powers this year for sure. And a brand new car is coming out. I know they got to get that shaken down. They got to work out the new car blues that everybody has. But the performance they've got with the old car, put that in a new car with everything figured out, he just might be unbeatable. I will say this, though. Johnny Placino in the strutmasters.com Mustang, he showed performance in Maryland testing and in the race, making a final round appearance, a much-needed final round appearance. Do not count the reigning world champion in PDRA out. He will definitely be there at the end. But I firmly believe the last race of the year, this year in PDRA, going into their finals, it will not be as it was last year, where Johnny Placino comfortably waltzes in to Virginia Motorsports Park, and all he's got to do is qualify, and the deal is sealed, and he's the champion. I don't think that is going to happen. No way. And then Pro Boost, there's no way to call it. Pro Boost may be the most exciting door slammer class out there, period, right now. Period. Over Midwest Drag Racing Series, NHRA Drag Racing, Outlaw Races, NMRA, MMCA, any other NAH, ADR, whatever, all the acronyms, throw them together. PDRA, Pro Boost. I think is the most fascinating door slammer class right now. The competition is so tight and so intense. If you qualify for that field, you've got a shot of winning that race. I'm sure the Galat teams, the Galat cars, are going to play a factor in it. Don't count out James Beadling. Don't count out P2 Construction Racing with Todd Totoro and Kurt Stedding. So many players in that class right now. Well, folks, we're going to take a break, and right after the break, we will bring on our guest tonight, Elon Werner, and get the behind-the-scenes scoop and talk drag racing with him tonight. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for participating. Have those questions ready as we take a break and remind you about the great deal that you can get with Power Built Tools. Power Built Tools exemplifies innovation in the tool industry. From hand tools, power tools, and even tool storage. Check out powerbuilt.com for Power Built Tools. And remember, use promo code MMR15 for 15% off at purchase. Elon, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Hang on, let me get my gear on here real quick.
Yes. Got the Pit Vipers tonight. I like it.
We talked about these. These are actually my son's. I'm borrowing these. I can't wear them for the whole show because I literally cannot see my iPhone from where I'm sitting right now, and I'm 2 feet away. That's how blind I am without my glasses.
Oh,
but
man,
imitation is the greatest form of flattery.
Yes. There you go. Hey, you're styling and profiling now. I know. I've got to go one day and apologize to like John Kernan because I've completely ripped off what he does, and I'm like, it works, so that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah, exactly. How are you doing, Lee?
Man, I'm doing great. Ready to talk some drag racing and go behind the scenes with you. You obviously play an important role in the world of drag racing, even though people may not see you. You are visible, but they may not know, hey, that guy, that tall guy, he is playing a role with all these teams and the machinery. And, look, before I dive in on any questions, Jonathan E. Coleman, he says, Elon, shoot straight. What's your favorite track to visit and why? And I'll give you a pass on Texas Motorplex if you got to go beyond that.
Okay. Hands down, it is ZMAX Dragway, Bellagio drag strips. It is the nicest, closest to hotels. PR staff is top notch. They serve beer in the press room on Sunday nights, and they do 4 wide and 2 wide in the countdown. And it's just, if you're going to go to one track for a race, I highly recommend ZMAX. And then my number 2 pick is Bristol, and then Pomona. So hands down, no, it's not even close.
I never got the beer memo at ZMAX. Yeah. What's up with that?
Well, I think they didn't do it this past year because of the world we're living in.
Okay.
Now I guarantee in the fall there will be beer in the press room. That was, that's old school. That's going back to when Bernstein and Larry Dixon were racing in the beer wars. There was always Budweiser and Miller Lite in the press room. And as a PR guy, you write better with a couple beers in you. Not a lot, just a couple to kind of, lube up the old brain pan and get the fingers flowing and get the words coming out of your head. So, that's. And just so you guys know, full disclosure, Jonathan is the PR guy at ZMAX. So that was just a full-on setup question. But it is true. It is true that ZMAX is just the best. The fans are so great. I remember the first time we went out there for a drag race, all the NASCAR fans were so used to lining up to get autographs. They just went in a straight line away from the hauler. They didn't just line up along the ropes like NHRA fans do. So they were just a straight line, just snaking through the pit area. And we're like, you guys can just come and crowd around if you want. You don't have to be in a straight line. We'll get to everybody. And it took them about almost 2 years to figure out that they could just crowd in and the drivers would still come out.
Yeah, Ron, he mentioned on Competition Plus Power Hour, Ron Capps, that, like the first couple of times going there, a lot of the people used to NASCAR, they would be shocked that, there's a driver right there.
Right.
He's right there.
Right. Yeah.
And,
it was like
and the
it was like they're seeing
accessibility.
Bigfoot. It was like they're seeing
Yeah.
Bigfoot. Yeah. So it was always funny when I would go to do NASCAR appearances with NHRA drivers, because they would stay and sign for everybody. They would, do pictures. They'd personalize things. They'd sign multiple items. And NASCAR guys won't do that. IndyCar guys won't do that. And, IndyCar sent out a tweet today talking about, I think NBC Sports sent a tweet out that said, if you could only go to one sport, what sport would it be? And the IndyCar Twitter person, sent out, we'd go to the IndyCar series because it's the fastest motorsport and it's the most accessible. And they may have even thrown in most diverse, which that's three things that are completely wrong with IndyCar or even NASCAR. Drag racing is the fastest, drag racing is the most diverse, and drag racing has the most accessibility. Yeah, there it is right there. So that's just crazy. What are they thinking? Are they just, it's just ridiculous. I always put this challenge out that we should somehow just get 10 random people, give them tickets to an NHRA race, give them tickets to a NASCAR race, and give them tickets to an IndyCar race, and challenge them to meet and get autographs from the top 10 people in points. I have 100% certainty that if anybody grabs somebody from your local grocery store, they could come to a drag race and meet everybody in the top 10 in Top Fuel, everybody in the top 10 in Funny Car, Pro Stock Bike, get an autograph, get a picture. I would bet $1 million on that. There is zero chance they could get all 10 at an IndyCar race. They might be able to get 6 or 7 because IndyCar does do a pretty good job with some structured signing events, but you'd have to be early. There's no way if just Joe Bag of Donuts goes to a NASCAR race, he gets more than 3 autographs. And that's if he or she dedicates all their time to tracking down drivers. And that's just getting 3 NASCAR drivers. That's not even trying to get 3 top 10 drivers. NHRA has the best accessibility, the fastest mile per hour, and the most diversity, hands down.
I completely agree. Talked about it a little bit before bringing you on as the guest that, man, what is the IndyCar Twitter handler doing? Is it the intern or what?
Right. I rarely snap back at somebody, but I've been on IndyCar for years, and I was glad to see NHRA take them on, because that's so long IndyCar's talked about, we're the fastest motorsport. No, you're not. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from the Indy 500. That is, to me, I think the Daytona 500's probably passed it a little bit for me as far as, being a big spectacle. But you'll never convince me that the Indy 500 is not a personal must-see event for any sports fan. And it's a great event, but the rest of the series doesn't really have a lot going for it. It's just not that great. But they got the Indy 500, and that's a pretty good, club in your bag. NASCAR's got the Daytona 500. I love the Roval. They're doing things. They're racing on dirt now, which they are, recently Sports Business Journal named NASCAR the #1 series of 2020. Mm-hmm. And I think that could not be more deserving, because they managed everything. They kept all their races going. They're innovating, and I like to think, hopefully NHRA is looking at that, and they're going to take a page from that, and take a page from some of these other racing series. I heard you, Lee, I'm impressed that you know all those racing series. I can barely keep NHRA straight in my head, but PDRA, ADRL, Mountain Motors, all those guys, Outlaws, the big money bracket races. I think there's so many opportunities to innovate in our sport that we should really embrace those opportunities and, hey, try to come up with a way. I love the fact that the Constant Aviation Factory Stock Showdown class has a bounty.
Yes.
I think every class should have a bounty. There should be some, to create that opportunity to get some, action going on the deal. I think honestly, we've talked about this before in the countdown. I think guys should be able to pick their opponents in the countdown. If you're the number one qualifier and you're number 3 in the points, you should be able to pick. I want to race the guy that's number 1 in points in the first round.
That would definitely shake things up.
And that, and have it part of the opening ceremonies, Facebook Live it, whatever. But just let's create, some more, let's give these guys a shot to race each other and, just see what happens.
Definitely, man. And look, I have felt for a long time that the NHRA has been the redheaded stepchild of American motorsports. And, just like this tweet coming out from Indycar today, it's like, what do we got to do to get some respect for NHRA drag racing? And I definitely think it's by being innovative. And what else do we got to do, though? What do you think the NHRA's got to do to expose itself where people understand, hey, our drivers are accessible, our cars are accessible. And look, I know a lot of people want to bicker about ticket prices, but they actually, compared to many other motorsports and sporting events, are in fact reasonable. So
sure.
What's got to be done to break out of the circle of the NHRA fan that knows it like myself?
I think the responsibility lands a little bit on drivers of really showing their personality. I think we've got some drivers that do a great job of talking about what they're doing away from the track and talk about what they're doing at the track. Antron Brown, Leah Pruitt, Sean Langdon does a great job of engaging people on social media. JR Todd, Brittany and Courtney Force, when Courtney was racing, was great about that. But I also think other series get a lot of support from their sponsors, and that helps too. And you see that in our sport a little bit, but I would love to see some of our sponsors take, some of their dollars and really promote our drivers in national TV commercials, promote our drivers in national publications, and granted, print is not really that popular right now, but that's where a lot of drivers, particularly Danica Patrick, really established herself on the American sports scene, is because her sponsors, GoDaddy, paid to have her in magazines and paid to have her on shows. And I think that helps. But I think you're starting to see more and more popularity with the racing series by Fox promoting us. I'd like to see more Fox cross promotion. We have drivers that are huge NFL fans. J.R. Todd loves the Bengals. Cruz Pedregon loves the Raiders. Let's get some of those guys to NFL games. Let's get them in studio. Let's talk about the horsepower aspect. But really, the series can only do so much other than really promoting. We've got guys going 300 miles per hour. And I think we've been our own worst enemy because we have been diverse for so long. It's not really been a thing. And diversity is a big thing in the country right now. But we've always had women competitors that were pretty much, Shirley, ran through a gauntlet, but she was eventually accepted, won world championships to pave the way for, Shelley and Kristen Powell and Ashley Force and Erica Enders, so they could come out here and race, and Leah and all these people. And then we've had African-American racers from, Don Perdome and, J.R. Todd and Antron, Peggy Llewellyn. I mean, that's not a big thing. And Hispanic, Cruz just won this past weekend. We had a female winner and a Hispanic winner on Fox National TV, which was great. But no other sport has that kind of diversity. And we have tried to trumpet it. We've tried to promote it. But because we are so welcoming, it's just not really been that big of a deal, So we're almost hurt because diversity's always been a part of the sport for 50 years.
Right. Mentioned that earlier, that in this wave of, oh, let's all become diverse, drag racing's like, well, welcome to the party.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't,
You know,
I remember when NASCAR started the diversity program, their diversity program, a reporter called me and wanted to know about the NHRA's diversity program. And I was like, we don't have one. We're already diverse. We don't have to have a program to kickstart minority owners. We have minority owners. We don't have to have a funnel to get women involved in something besides driving. We have women that are clutch specialists, that are crew chiefs, that are general managers of race teams, that are running tracks. And it was just kind of like, oh. And then they just kind of moved on. And that's, that's kind of a failure on our part. It's, hey, if you want to talk to them, we're happy to be available, but it's, always kind of been a thing. We did a story with Fox at one time in 2019. There were 3 women running the 3 biggest teams. Megan Schumacher was running DSR and still is. Kelly Antonelli was one of the leaders of John Force Racing, and Rachel Delago was the general manager for Club Motorsports. I mean, that's pretty awesome. And they're still doing great things. We have women in leadership roles at the series level too. And then I think what's amazing is I love what NASCAR is doing to promote Jamie Little, but we've got great women broadcasters on our side. Amanda Busick, Jamie Howe. They're doing amazing things on the NHRA side. So again, we're kind of the victims of our own success because we've always elevated people basically because if you can cut a light, if you can tune your car, if you can drive well, if you can speak well, there's a place for you in an NHRA at any level.
I got to say this. If a motorsports group will allow me to be there, they're diverse and accepting.
Right. Yeah, and no offense to you, but yeah, you're right. I mean, look at you. You got crazy sunglasses. I didn't even, and your sunglasses are so part of your look that earlier this weekend at Norwalk, Lee was sitting behind me without his sunglasses on, and I honestly didn't recognize him for 20 seconds. I almost introduced myself to him, and the president, I was like, "Oh, that's Lee. I recognize him," but he just looked like a regular person. He didn't look like Monday Morning Racer. So your persona is so dead on that you're now like Kiss. You can take the makeup off.
Right.
Guys can just walk around. No problem.
Right. I can take the shades off, incognito. We're good.
Yeah, it's like Clark Kent. You're like Clark. Yeah, you're more of a reverse Clark Kent.
There we go. Well, look, we got some folks asking about some John Force questions. I knew that was going to happen tonight.
Sure.
I want to start with this, though. So on the thumbnail for tonight's show that I created, it's got this photo of you getting an award, and It is the Jim Chapman Award.
Yes.
So I've got to ask, one, what is that award? What is the significance of it? And then what's going on with John? Is he like, no, don't take the picture. I can't be associated. What's going on here, man?
Okay. The Jim Chapman Award is, it's a motorsport. It's really the highest award a motorsports PR professional can get for any category: NASCAR, Indycar, drag racing. It's named after a gentleman who was actually Babe Ruth's PR person and really created so many things that we take advantage for on the PR world now on the motorsports side. Media tours, pit access. Michael Knight, who writes for the Arizona Republic, has been kind of the caretaker of this award. The list of people that have won it, the year that I won it, there are actually 2 winners. It was myself and John Edwards, who was Jeff Gordon's PR person. And I was blown away to win it when I did, because it's a lifetime achievement award, and it's voted on by national media, and to be recognized at that level really blew me away because it is such an honor. I mean, the list of people who won it before me are my mentors, my idols in the PR business from all forms of motorsports. There's a permanent trophy that is actually was at Indianapolis Motor Speedway for a while with everyone's names on it, and now I believe it's at Phoenix. So it's just a great honor to be recognized for being a motorsports PR professional. And in that picture, of course, John was talking. So they're like, hey, let's take some pictures. And he was continuing to tell a story. So like me, he talks with his hands. So he was just kind of reaching out to just kind of continue to explain his story. That was in Las Vegas press room. And it was really cool. My wife flew in for the race to see that presentation. There were a number of drivers that came in the press room. It was just really cool. And it's really, hands down one of, it's the big honor I've ever received to get that award.
All right, so dive in. Best John Force or most favorite John Force story. Jonathan E. Coleman asked that. That's the legit question. He's saying that.
Yeah.
What is your most favorite story with John Force involved?
I would say, well, there's a couple. When he hired me, he called me Ian for 2 years before he got my name right. So that was just one of those, just kind of funny because he's terrible with names. And there were two. So one is I was kind of a contract worker for a while in 2006 and 2007. And in 2007 at the Dallas race, we'd talked about most of the season that I would come and work for him full time. And so we're at the Dallas race. We kind of worked out the details for kind of a contract, and he's like, let's get this deal worked out. And I was like, great. And he's like, I got the contract in my bus. Let's sign it. I got distracted. And he's like, okay, well, you know what? He goes, let me go race Kenny Bernstein real quick on the semifinals. We'll sign this contract after this run. And I'm in the press room with Dave Dinsmore. We all know what happened on that run with Kenny Bernstein, the Motorplex in 2007. Force obviously has this incident. The first words out of my mouth to Dinsmore were, I don't think I'm signing my deal with Force today. So go to the hospital. Force survives. I'm at the hospital with him every day. Started working with him full time in 2008. We used to stay at his house when we would travel to Pomona. Dinsey and I would. And he would just walk into the house just whenever he wanted, which because it's his house. He had a little side house. And he would just sit down and tell us stories, and it was amazing. But probably the best John Force story was when he won the championship in 2010 and came back on Hagen. I rode out to the track with him that morning, and you could just tell he was in a completely different headspace as far as what he knew what he needed to do that day on Sunday. And then he gave one of the best pre-race. He used to bring all the teams together into our we had a technology center, which is two 18-wheelers parked beside each other in the middle of our pits. He'd bring all the teams in there. And Henry Ford the third was at the race. We were backed by Ford then. And Force gave a speech where he essentially said he guaranteed he would win the championship. And if he didn't win the championship, he would give Ford all their money back. And since Henry Ford III was there, he was going to go out there and win that championship, and everybody was going to do their jobs. And I had goosebumps during it. And we did a team prayer, and everybody shot out of there. And it was just an amazing moment to watch him not just win the championship, but win the race. And just the emotion of that, after 2007, seeing him get that 15th championship, I'll just never forget that day. And that's my hands down most favorite memory of Force.
He's never shied from making the big, bold statements, whether from his mouth or going out there and setting himself on fire in hopes of keeping a sponsor. That's the John Force way.
Yeah. And he also, if you go back and look at the significant wins of his career, he won the 50th anniversary race at Pomona. He won the first four-wide race. If there's a significant event, he will go out. He won, Winston Showdown, the Top Fuel versus Indycar race. He beat Bob Vandergriff Jr. He has the ability to raise his competitive game on par with Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, the best of the best when it comes to locking in. And his biggest enemy is himself, in that, Dale Worsham had a great line, because Force is so involved in everything. I mean, he puts decals on cars, sponsor deals, driving, team management, all this stuff. And Dale, one day when he was racing Indycar, told us, he goes, man, if that guy would just concentrate on racing, no one else would ever win around a racing. Because, that's the only thing that's saving us. He's so scattered that sometimes he just gets, sideways. But if all he did was focus on racing, there's no doubt he'd have 200 national event wins. And it's impossible to not think that.
Well, I felt like that was the case this year at Atlanta Dragway. That's been a special track for him, all that he's got done there and his daughters. And I was like, you could tell the performance had stepped up that very day. And, Taska just did get it in the finals,
right.
But you could tell he stepped up. And you working with him for so many years, does he feel kind of like Dale Earnhardt from Dale Jr. himself saying on his podcast that his dad expressed to him for big moments like the first Brickyard 400, even though Earnhardt didn't win it, he felt like he had to win it. He had to win those significant moments because he was the sport. Does John feel that way even at this time in his career?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he felt that when ZMAX opened, when, they went to 4 Wide in Vegas, that he feels the mantle of pressure of NHRA and drag racing on himself, and that he has to represent and do more for the fans, more for his sponsors, support other competitors. He is, given bodies to teams. He's given parts to teams. He's, sold used parts to teams, and, they owe money, and he's just like, let's just, whenever they can pay, they can pay. So he's really done a tremendous amount for the sport, just in being who he is, bringing his daughters into the sport, being available to any time for any interviews, even now. I don't think anyone works harder than him to promote the sport. And, his level, it's all he does. That's why last year I think was so hard for him. He doesn't do anything except for drag racing. He doesn't have side businesses. He doesn't have other forms of income. He drag races, and that's all he does. So you see that level of experience, and he has great people around him, going back to Austin Coyle and Bernie Federley, and then you look at who he's raced with, Eric Medlin, Tony Pedregon, Robert Height, crew chiefs like Jimmy Prock, John Medlin, any number, Mike Neff. He has always found ways to bring people under his umbrella to get the maximum amount of success from them and for his team.
Well, folks, thank you all for watching. Watching tonight, Elon, we've got guys like Caleb Cox, Jonathan E. Coleman, Roger Richards, Bobby Bennett's watching. So, look, a lot of heavy hitters out there watching you tonight. Well, we're going to take a break real quick. We're going to come back. We're going to dive back in, and I want to definitely get to some specifics on this year at the track with drivers and the Motorplex.
Perfect.
Yes, you can now get Monday Morning Racer swag. Shop SpeedShark.com, Team SpeedShark. They can hook you up with Monday Morning Racer apparel. Not only Monday Morning Racer apparel, we're talking about apparel for Johnny Placino, Camry Caruso, Frankie the Madman Taylor, and more to come soon. Check them out at ShopSpeedShark.com or at your next race at the SpeedShark trailer. All right, Elon, you've got an interesting list, I think, of people that you are supporting out there right now in the pits. It seems like it's like half the field almost, but I'm going to bring up a photo of the ones that I do know about, and I just want you to give your perspective on working with that team, that driver.
Sure.
And as we go on down the line, like the nuances from each of them.
Yep. Okay.
All right, first one. See if it pops up. Good old Wilk. Not having that great of a year right now. How's things going? Oh, matter of fact, I got you in that one. Look at you taking the photo on the line.
No, that's ridiculous, but that's great. Wilk, I really don't do that much with Tim. Just kind of help him out. Do a race report for him every now and then. He's one of my favorite throwback guys. He's tuning that car. He's driving the car. He's got a family operation. He beats himself up sometimes because he's maybe a little late on the tree or he's misses a little tune up. But I predict he'll get 1 or 2 race wins this year, and for sure make the countdown. But he is one of my favorite guys to talk to because I learn more about how the cars actually work from talking to him than probably anybody I work with.
I honestly last year was surprised that he didn't get a win. I mean, Don Schumacher Racing had that dominating year last year, and he's one of those that I was shocked that he didn't clip a win off at some point last year, and definitely looking for that to turn around because he's hungry for it, and he's got a team capable of doing that. So I'm expecting it.
Yes, for sure.
All right, second one. Alexis. That's one cool cat out there in the NHRA pits. Talk to me about working with her and Dale and that operation.
Yeah. That operation, I love everybody that I work with. Dale's another guy that I always learn something from talking to him about how he's running that funny car. Alexis is so spot on with how she views how she wants to do her career. She is very involved on the PR side about doing media, quotes, reading race reports, approving race reports. But then she has this whole other kind of just cool side where she's riding motorcycles and, involved in business, starting a tequila brand and the whole rocket car. So she is so competitive. Again, she's got a great race car. And I think, she's another one that any Sunday she's in the field, there's a chance for her to win. I mean, she had a car that was running with Cruz, just had a bad round, or she could have won the race in Norwalk. But probably one of the top 3 or 4 most competitive drivers I've ever worked with.
Honestly, you look at the point situation, she's sitting 8th in points, I believe it is.
Yep.
And I'm like, I know. I'm like, eventually they got to get to the top 5, if not even better, with Dale tuning on it and her driving. They have had some strange things this year happen to them.
They had the issue with the body in Atlanta, which really hurt them. And that was a weird deal. They switched bodies and it just didn't fit right on the chassis. So they had a problem in qualifying. They thought they fixed it Saturday night, and it just kind of recurred on Sunday morning in the first round against JR. So that's just bad racer luck, kind of. You just think you got the problem fixed and it doesn't work out for you. But overall, she's so committed to it. Dell's so committed to it. Nikki's over there. All those crew guys are top notch. They will get it figured out on Sunday before we know it. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him do some damage on the Western Swing.
Me too. I honestly am expecting, because the performance has been there. Even saw it in Epping to some degree, and then they, I talked to Dale, like Epping, the first round of qualifying, like, man, why was it so bad? And he's like, well, we just overstepped, and we should have stuck to the fundamentals. And then Norwalk, they have, a couple of great sessions. He's like, we stuck to the fundamentals and we're going to be tough.
Right.
And they were. So definitely looking forward to the Western Swing with them. I think it would not shock me that Alexis comes away with a win somewhere out there on the Western Swing. Yeah. Now, you also are working with one of the youngest and one of the brightest individuals out there in NHRA competition, a known lever right now in Justin Ashley. So what's it like working with the young man?
I love working with drivers like Justin that are just getting into the sport, especially ones that are so eager to ask questions about what they should be doing and how they should be involved and talking to media. I was fortunate to work with the Force daughters, as they were coming up through the sportsman ranks into the pro ranks. I've been, Ness rookie year. And Justin has some great experience and great knowledge from his father, Mike Ashley, but he is doing so many things on his own as far as finding sponsors, working with Davis Motorsports to run that team. He is hands down, he'll be a superstar in this sport. He's already a star, rookie of the year, but he constantly wants to get better. He's a sponge. He's talking to Antron. He's talking to Tony Schumacher. He's talking to Sean Langdon. And he does so many things naturally, correctly, that the success he's going to have in this sport really shows that the future is very bright, particularly in Top Fuel, and especially with Justin. He is for sure, going to jump up in the countdown. He's kind of hovering right around the number 8 spot right now. But, we've talked, he's not obsessing about the countdown, but he wants to make the countdown. He wants to be a factor in the championship hunt. And I don't see any reason why he can't do that.
Oh, I think at this point, and with them running now all the races, he's almost a lock, because you start looking at some of the part-time guys and where they stand.
Yeah.
The nature of fuel racing right now is, honestly, if you're a full-time car and you don't make the countdown, something is seriously wrong.
Yeah. And that's the case. I actually did a spreadsheet one time, and I shared it with Justin, of the average rounds you need to make the countdown. Round wins to make the countdown. So after the regular season, how many round wins do you need to be in the top 10 with 6 races to go? And from the inception of the countdown, which was 2007, until about 3 years ago, it was about 11 and a half round wins, which meant that basically you need to win, get out of first round at least 75% of the time in the regular season. In the last 3 years, that has now jumped to just over 13 round wins, which basically means you almost need to get out of the first round every race in order to be in the top 10. So Justin is easily on pace to do that. The semifinal start in Gainesville was a huge help. He's gone rounds just about every race, very few first round losses. But that's kind of where, you just need to go round. It's not rocket science. It sounds, pretty basic. If you go rounds, you're going to make the countdown. And then once you get in the countdown, anything can happen. Robert Hype showed that in 2009. I think it'll be interesting this year with 7 races in the countdown now that they've thrown Bristol in. I think that'll give some teams some latitude to really make some moves, because that just gives you opportunities to get a few more round wins, and you can really close that gap pretty easily.
Right. I say it regularly. I've said it in my national event in reviews, and I've just said it for a long time, with the knowledge after watching all of those 1980, years in review on VHS. You have got to get past first round to win a championship.
For sure.
People who get past first round, you got to do it.
Yep. And once you get in the countdown, if you can avoid first round losses and race on average to the semifinals, you will be in contention on Sunday in Pomona. That's really what you need to be. Again, it's math. It's pretty basic. But if you can do that, get a couple wins on the front end, get some people chasing you, you get some momentum, you'd be surprised how other teams start pressing, and you kind of have that confidence, and then you're in great shape.
Well, Top Fuel 173 has a great question. I'm going to put it towards the end, because I do want to know, are there any other teams that I didn't have a picture loaded for? Because those are the teams I get the PR little pieces for. So who else are you involved with out there team-wise?
Obviously, Coletta. If you're not getting my Coletta releases, I will correct that right now, because you should be getting the Coletta releases. So I do PR for Coletta Motorsports with Doug Coletta, Sean Langdon, and J.R. Todd. And those three guys are the most serious racers I've ever worked with. They talk about racing. They race when they're not at NHRA races. They iRace. They are constantly working on their craft, and they are racers. So Sean Langdon, you're not going to find a guy that knows more about every little thing about drag racing, from bracket racing to, top fuel racing. J.R. Todd can pretty much race anything with a steering wheel, and so can Doug Coletta. We were at a race earlier this year, and Tony Stewart was over in our pits talking to Doug, and they were talking about back in the day when they used to race sprint cars and midget series and all that stuff. And I think Tony Stewart gave Doug, one of many well-deserved compliments, but they said they used to call Doug the silent assassin because he would fly in to midget races, get in his car, kick everybody's ass, pick up the trophy, go back to the airport, fly home, and go back to work for Coletta Air. And Tony said it was the most amazing thing that guys would be out there practicing, and Doug would just hop in, get in the car, a couple hot laps, and then just go kick everybody's ass. And that's kind of what he's known. They're struggling a little bit right now, but there's no doubt those guys over there know what they need to do. They're going to get that car running again. And I mean, there's a reason he's a perennial championship contender. And I don't see any reason why Doug couldn't win it, be fighting with Sean and Steve Torrance for the championship at the end of this year.
All right, so drivers, teams, that's not all, though, in the world of motorsports. So I'm going to bring this photo up, and let's talk about your work for the Motorplex and what it's like having yourself associated with such a prestigious facility, the house that Billy built.
Yes. Let's go back in the Between the Slicks time machine to 1993, when I was interviewing with Billy Meyer to be the PR guy at the Motorplex. I had never seen a drag race live in person. I did not know Billy was a former funny car driver, and I thought every drag strip was like a Motorplex. Billy had been hiring drag racing guys and trying to teach them PR, and he took a flyer on a kid that had been working for the Dallas Mavericks and said, I'm going to hire a PR guy and teach him drag racing. And that's what he did. So I started in the spring of 93 doing PR for the Motorplex. The very first race that I worked at as a PR guy, I showed up in khaki pants, a white dress shirt, wearing a tie. 6 hours later, I immediately threw that white shirt away because it was covered in rubber. And I don't think I've worn a tie to a drag race since, but that's what we wore for NBA games. Billy taught me so much about the sport. I learned so much working at the Motorplex. I was the PR guy from 93, and I was there until 2000. And the last 2 years that I was there, I was the PR person and also the general manager of the racetrack. So managed the staff, dealt with sponsors, and it was just amazing to be there when we had so much history. Was there when Corey Mack ran the first 320 run, was there when Selzy, Force, WJ, and Larry Morgan all set national records in Top Fuel, Funny Car, Pro Stock Truck. So many special events. We used to do a big 4th of July race. We would do concerts. That track really set me up to really understand the sport and appreciate Billy's passion, for drag racing. And it's just amazing. I think I've only missed one Fall Nationals since 1993. And I've been involved with the track off and on, either as a team rep or for an agency. I still now do their PR through 20F PR. And it's just in the Dallas area, it's well regarded as one of the premier facilities in the area. And I think it's held up so well that there would be no ZMAX, there would be no Vegas, no Bristol without there certainly wouldn't be any Chicago without Billy's design of the Motorplex, and it's currently being remodeled right now. It was damaged pretty severely in that winter storm that came through Texas. So the tower will be completely redesigned. They're redesigning the media center. It's going to be a brand new facility when we come there later this October. And they're going to have some exciting announcements coming up about the Fall Nationals and really taking that race to a whole nother level, not just for drag racing, but when it comes to sporting events in the state of Texas.
Stellar, man. Good to hear that the Texas Motorplex is back on the rise. I remember seeing the photos of the damage. And then when I was there for the Nitro Madness, I was like, wow, they really did get hit. And you could tell everything was gutted inside the tower. And it looked pretty rough. Well, man, look, thank you for being on tonight. One last question for you from Top Fuel 173. I think you'll have a good barometer on this. And I know for me, I feel like we are coming into a positive time for the NHRA. His question, though, is what's your take on the current state of NHRA? From what people tell me, NHRA is dead and No Prep Kings is doing way better. Where do you think it stands, man?
I think the NHRA is really going to make huge strides in the back half of the season. I think they, last year it really was honestly just trying to get from event to event to not let the series just become an afterthought. And a lot of people made a lot of sacrifices, particularly I think the teams, to go to races to make sure the TV show happened. The NHRA made sacrifices. But now I think they're seeing that turn around, and the quality of racing I don't think has ever been better. We're seeing better TV ratings. They're getting back to the old way of doing things. We did a track walk in Norwalk. I think you're going to see more media coverage, drivers doing more interviews and things like that now we can kind of get back in the same room with each other. But there's so many people that are so invested in the sport, from the series side, Glenn Cromwell, Evan Jonett, Jeffrey Young and his staff. They're expanding their PR department and social media department, which I think will be very helpful. The biggest thing, like with everybody, it's the economy's still not back. So finding sponsorship is critical. I think finding a sponsor for Factory Stock Show and bringing Constant Aviation in, huge. Keeping Camping World happy, huge. I think, as we're going to more events, Sonoma being able to be 100%, I think you're going to see a lot of sold-out events. Denver's going to be great. Sonoma will be great. I'll be curious to see how well Pomona does. But I think that when people talk about, Street Outlaws or No Prep is super popular because they have packed grandstands and, they're on TV, well, they're not doing a lot of the things. They're not investing in a lot of things that NHRA is investing in. And it's easy to have a series that's popular when you really are only catering to maybe 12 to 16 competitors. It's much harder when you have 4 professional categories, the subcategories. You're going to 19 different tracks versus maybe 6 or 7 different tracks. And that's where I think the scale of the NHRA is so much bigger than some of these other events, not to take anything away from them. But I don't think you could do No Prep 20 times a year. Do I think the NHRA series, the season is maybe a little long? Would I like to see it closer to, 18 races, tighten it up a little bit, and then maybe have some off-season races? Sure. But there's so many iconic tracks that have history. You can't just not go to those races unless really push comes to shove. So I am a very big proponent of NHRA and also of these other drag racing series. I want to see these other series succeed because I think it just makes all of us, makes us better and makes us think about other ways to do things.
I say it regularly on this show here. I've said it on Competition Plus Power Hour. The NHRA sets the bar, and the higher the NHRA goes, that also will allow all those other series beneath it and I hate to say even beneath, but those different flavor, if you will, to rise along with it.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that NHRA is getting better about is being more accepting of these other series. I mean, I know a couple years ago it was a big deal when Big Chief came to an NHRA race. That street outlaws were always, oh, they're doing things illegal. They're not doing things the right way. Well, they have a following, and you need to kind of embrace that, and either kind of work with them to make sure they're doing things safely, even if it doesn't look like they're doing things safely. And you need to be welcoming to those guys and encouraging to those guys, because you never know where a fan is going to cross over. And that's places like the Motorplex that are doing a wide variety of events. That's a huge plus. Other tracks do that. Having car shows, things like that, and just really feeding everything into your NHRA Camping World Drag Racing Series, I think really is a huge benefit. The one thing I would love to see is more. We've talked about it. Different circles. It's never really worked out. But I would love to, at Sonoma, could we ever have a NHRA event and an Indycar race on the same weekend? Could we do something in Indy where, we have a drag race and, there's something going on at the Speedway? Charlotte would be another perfect example. Can we do something at ZMAX and Charlotte Motor Speedway? Just kind of cross and kind of mesh those two fan bases. And I think that's where the NHRA is looking. And, unfortunately, our cars are so powerful, they really need a pristine racing surface to really operate efficiently. You can't do a roval with a drag race. You can't drag race on dirt. But, we can do four wides. Maybe we can do some all-star races. Maybe we can do some things where we get competitors from all the professional categories and maybe put them in factory stock cars to kind of level the playing field a little bit and have them race in those. I think there's just some opportunities that we could really take some chances and have some, but again, drivers, have egos. You don't want to look silly. You don't want to, but that's the nature of our sport is you can't just take a pro stock person and put them in a top fuel car.
Right.
You can't take a funny car driver and put them on a pro stock motorcycle. So that's a little bit of a disadvantage for us. We need to figure out a way to promote those people, promote what they're doing, talk about the differences, and really try to be effective in elevating our sport, And, we have really unique personalities getting involved in the sport now. I think NHRA probably needs to really do get Fletcher Cox more involved, get guys like that. We need more Fletcher Coxes in the sport to just get us talking in other areas.
Definitely, I agree. And that's something like me and Doug Foley, we've talked about that. Like, well, why not drag racing? That's why we came up with what we did, and then put it on it. Like, literally, why not? Why is everybody looking toward stock car racing and IndyCar racing? Why not here and try to give a little bit more extra exposure and we'll get them involved? I mean, NASCAR, they hired the Saints running back on how to get more minorities to NASCAR. I don't know whether that was a right move or not. That's something that they look at seeing this is worth doing. And you had the announcement, Trackhouse Racing, which has Pitbull as an owner. I mean, they just bought Chip Ganassi on the NASCAR side. I mean, wow.
I would love to see what that offer was. I saw that, and you're a guy like Chip Ganassi. You've probably got warehouses full of money. And then he said that, they made him an offer that was too good to pass up. I can't even imagine what that offer must have looked to just basically turnkey it. So
I agree. I agree. I do have to wonder, obviously we wonder about the dollar amount, but I wonder if there was like free tickets to any Pitbull concert. That's what I wonder about. I wonder if that was in the deal.
I have to think that there was a Taylor deal and a sunglass deal involved in that.
Yeah,
you're going to get, you're going to get the sweetest suits and the best sunglasses as part of this deal.
Yes. So. Yes. And even beyond celebrities such as football players and musicians, It has been a while, I think, since we've had some of the super team owners in other motorsports say it's reasonable, it's viable for us to be in drag racing. Like the last guy that I think of that was that individual, it's Joe Gibbs. Roger Penske. Why don't we see him in drag racing? Why didn't we see a Chip Ganassi in drag racing? These individuals that have multiple motorsports, contacts and cars and teams. Why don't we see Roger Penske drag racing? Why don't we see, Andretti drag racing? I think we've got to look at that and go, what is stopping those guys from coming in and being a part of what we're doing?
That's a good point. And I am encouraged to see Rick Hendrick involved with Greg Anderson. I think that's,
huge.
That's a big deal. And I think that, when Greg does, tie WJ, and when he gets the record, I really feel like the Hendricks organization is going to make a big deal out of that. And that could be a big deal.
Yes.
But I do think you've hit the nail on the head of what are we doing to recruit other team owners outside of, NHRA drag racing to get involved, because, one of those teams could run, a top tier drag racing team on half of what they're spending for an Xfinity car. Easy.
Right.
And,
like I think Roger Penske, I think it's a perfect fit for them to run like a factory stock Cobra Jet. And they're running, cars down in Australia with V8 supercars. They've got Indycar, they've got, NASCAR at all levels. It's just like, what is holding them up from being involved right in the United States with Ford, with a Mustang?
Yeah, and I really think it is. They probably think they're touching everybody's motorsport base with NASCAR and IndyCar, and we're just kind of odd guy out. And I think it will take a guy, just stepping in and saying, you know what, I'm going to put a funny car with my NASCAR team. Whether it's Toyota or Chevy or whoever. I'm going to put, hey, you know what? I'm going to have, a female on my, and that's the thing is, that would be opportune for someone to be like, you know what? I want to get involved with Pro Stock Car, and I want to have Erica Enders as part of my motorsport super team so I can touch the female racer base, and I just think it's really a little bit of, how's that going to work? I just think that's just, that's an opportunity that hasn't been squared away.
Definitely. And look, back to what you're talking about with Rick Hendrick. I've said it often, and I agree. It is huge. The man was involved in Pro Stock in IHRA and NHRA in the mid '80s because he ran Rear and Morrison engines before there was a Hendrick engine program in the stock cars. And there's photos. You can see the Hendrick checkered flag on a Pro Stocker with Rare and Morrison, Bruce Allen, Lee Shepard. And he comes back after 30-something years and has some type of involvement. It's little things like that I look and I'm like, man, we might be going into a brand new time period for NHRA that is some of the brightest days that we've had in a long time. And I'm looking forward to it.
I agree.
Well, Elon, look, it has been great have you on tonight. I know we'll have you on again.
I appreciate it.
And there's a whole lot more we can talk about. A whole lot more John Force stories, a whole lot more drag racing stories. But thank you for giving us a behind-the-scenes look at what you do in the PR world and doing some, brainstorming on what NHRA drag racing can be. Thank you, sir.
All right, appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Folks, definitely give Elon a follow there on social media. You saw his Twitter tag right there as his name. Look, next week, Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to have Quayne Stott on Between the Slicks. Get that mid-season recap and look towards the end of the season for the Southeast Gassers Association with Quayne Stott. Each and every one of you, thank you for watching. Be sure to hit the like button for me, share, subscribe to the Monday Morning Racer YouTube channel, and follow on Twitter. And tell someone about Between the Slicks, where we talk about everything drag racing, that is, between the slicks. I'm the Monday Morning Racer, Lee Craft. And until next time, to you all, God bless and keep the pedal to the metal.